negative ones, don't be going, because you know, like, don't be judging and don't be saying, it just is today. It could change. It will change. Hopefully, it will change. But you also want to know when you come into a relationship, the person that you come into the relationship is there to help you change or heal that sometimes. So the very things that you need to work on is the partner that you are going to attract.
That's the mirror.
That's the mirror.
Where we get
activated. Where you get activated. That's exactly right. So let's just a couple positives. Just shout out a couple positives and just a couple positives. What do you bring into relationship?
Sense of humor.
Sense of humor.
Passion.
Passion.
What?
Harmony.
Harmony.
Adventurous.
Adventurous.
Ooh.
Thoughtfulness.
Honesty.
Honesty.
Loyalty.
Loyalty. Come on. More.
Patience.
Patience.
Love.
Love.
Spiritual knowledge.
Spiritual knowledge. Spiritual understanding.
Compromise.
Compromise.
Creativity.
Creativity.
Security.
Security.
Balance.
What?
Balance.
Balance.
Nice.
So all these things, as you feel them, it is spirit, creativity, Shakti flowing. All right, now, nobody's going to judge you, but let's hear the other column, okay? Just throw it out there.
Frustration.
Frustration. So, okay.
Doubt.
Doubt. Fear. Expectations. Ho, ho. Let me tell you about expectations in a relationship. That's a big one. Okay, what
Yeah.
else?
Stubbornness.
Stubbornness.
Nice.
What?
Not good at listening.
Not good at listening. Any
Guilt.
guilt?
Nice one.
Come on.
Nagging.
Nagging.
Controlling.
Controlling.
Hoarding.
Hoarding. Selfishness.
Resentment.
Resentment.
Anybody have lack of understanding? No? That's sometimes a nice one that flows in.
Overreactive. What do you mean? I don't do that. Okay, so those qualities, did you feel them? They're like this. They're tight. They're just like and they're just really tight. In a relationship, when things are in harmony and balance, there is a flow that happens. And you will start to get very used to that flow. It is creative flow. It is a flow of grace that we talked about on Sunday. It's a flow. It feels beautiful. And it just unfolds. The simplest things become so special. When we add those other qualities that we bring in, typically what happens? Things stop flowing. Now, that doesn't make you a bad person, but what you need to do is be aware when you bring it up in a relationship, because like you said, there's your mirror. And your partner, and you all know this, is your teacher to help you overcome that stuff. And it's so true. The very things that your soul came in to work on, this partner you attracted, whether it's for a day, whether it's for a lifetime, whatever, is there to help you see the inauthenticity of that. They're here to help you, not to make you wrong, because if they're making you wrong, if they're criticizing, that's their stuff. But if they're holding a space, and that's the one thing I can say that Gary and I do in this relationship which blows me away. We don't make each other wrong. We just, even if we have issues with each other, we don't point the finger and say, you did this. We just don't do that.
That's scary.
But if there's something, say for instance, that I am doing that does not honor him, he is certainly going to tell me, or vice versa. But he's not going to say it in like this. It's not a criticism, it's a perspective. And what we do is we talk to each other in, okay, this is my perspective. And he'll say, this is my perspective. And so we don't make each other wrong and we don't criticize, but we both recognize that we're a soul on a journey that's come with all this stuff, and here's my take on it. And eventually we come to understand where each other's coming from. And that creates that flow. But guess what? It takes work. It takes patience. And you don't make each other wrong.
There was a key thing I found out with my perception of myself and about the self-image I had and tried to project. I needed to be right. I needed to be right. I don't want to be. I needed to be right. And I carried that with me for most of my life, still now. I'll catch it. I'll catch it creeping in. That need to be right with things. And you realize with this and this interchange that is occurring, there isn't about the right and wrong of it. It's about a perspective that someone has about things and about you sharing that here's what I'm feeling. But the impersonalizing is also about the non-attachment to where that ultimately goes. You know, because if I take it real personal and I need to be right, there you go. I'm ready to go to war. You know, because I'm protecting and defending my belief systems and who I think I am and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, seeing God in the eyes of someone isn't quite there. You know?
The one thing that Gary does when I do have a creation or I do have something that comes up for me and I'm thrashing about it and he may not agree with it, his line to me, and I've told some of you this, he'll say to me, he doesn't ever say, that's wrong, that's stupid, that's dumb. He'll say, that's an interesting creation, Flossie. And then I know.
I watch for the wind-up.
So when he says that, what he's saying to me is that he recognizes that I have created something. And he definitely is not seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
And he's usually seeing me thrash in my creations. And he's just not trying to make me wrong, but he's showing me, you know, you might want to settle down and look at your creation. And then I get even more mad. And then I have to take myself out and say, because I know it is my creation. I know it. I know he's right. In that he's right in that it is my creation, but he's not making me wrong about it. And that gives me the freedom to work through it myself. And in a team, what a wonderful thing it is to have someone who you can, and men like to fix it, don't fix it, just listen. And Gary has learned how to just listen to me. And then I'm able to work through it myself. So you learn how the other person operates. I mean, women need to share. Most men don't need to go on about, and this, and this, and this, and this. They don't need it, and that's okay. But if I sense from him a little bit of offness, my intuition says, there's off. I'll give him the space to say, I don't say, what's wrong? Well, I tried that, but that doesn't work. I'll just say, you have some interesting energy around you. Are you going through something? What's happening?
The interesting thing of it is that happened with that is, she'll say, about letting her talk or something like that. What I realized is that I had an opportunity to listen and learn something maybe, change my perspective, have another experience through the eyes of somebody else, coming with a very different energy, the whole Shiva Shakti, masculine, feminine, because I was very much into my perspective of things, but I realized I was coming from a particular energetic aspect. And that all of a sudden I'm listening and I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's not how I was perceiving something before. And the key to it is within that relationship is being respectful enough, at least for me, respecting that when she's talking, there's something there. And I want to really listen to it. Now, I may not agree with it afterwards. It may not resonate with me, or whatever term you want to use, but there's still that opportunity to listen to it. To listen to her and open myself up for, is there something in there for me? Because again, it's about my priorities. At that moment, going and getting on the computer or going outside and doing something or doing something else is not as important as that. That's important for me. Now, one of the things, because we're obviously moved from beyond the casual friendships and the rest of it, but dealing more with intimate relationships, one of the things that really struck both of us was something that Deepak Chopra wrote. Why did God create two? God could have just created one. One could have just been around the planet, one person. But God created two. Why two? So that God could experience the joy of love. Oh, by the way, also,
Yeah.
do we have that?
Our
We have
most
it.
our
If you want-
favorite book is one of Deepak Chopra's least published books. And when Gary and I first got together, we read it together as a couple. And I don't know if you can see how many dog ears there are. This, I mean, the first half is like, but then you get into this second half, and it is so
it's
powerful.
really beautiful.
And it's just amazing. It's just amazing. It's called The Path to Love, Spiritual Strategies for Healing.
Yeah.
But it's really about relationships. And it gave us the tools and the perspective that we needed. And I will say that one of the things is that when your spiritual life is first and foremost in your relationship, that doesn't mean you have to have the same type of spiritual life or even the same practices, because one of the most detrimental, and you have to be careful with spiritual understanding and spiritual growth, is the most detrimental that can happen is when two beings are on the spiritual path and one starts to judge the other, and you get what's called spiritual superiority. Now, I know in my relationship there's things that he brings to the table that really help us on a spiritual level, and I know that I do as a woman. But there is never any contest as to who is one up. As a matter of fact, in this town, years ago, I don't know if it still is, but in this town, there were more divorces and they were of the spiritual community. Now that everybody's almost, gone through the divorce, and I think that's a thing about finding your truth and a whole nother workshop. But people were saying, oh, this is my spiritual soulmate. And then it was like this competition. Well, you're not doing this, and you're not doing that. And that's so detrimental to a relationship. So you want, the spiritual practices don't have to be the same, but really the alignment and understanding that you are supporting each other's evolution. And to me, that's the purpose of relationship, that we support each other's evolution. So you're going to go through your stuff, and I'm not going to run out the door and say, I don't like this, it's uncomfortable. I'm going to hold the space for you to go through your stuff.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And that to me is love. Okay? I'm going through stuff. And I know that it's okay, and he's going to hold that space for me to go through that, and vice versa.
It's the spice.
It's
The differences and the preferences are the spices, it seems.
Right. But it's the spice, but it's also the fact that you feel safe in the relationship. So many relationships now are like, it doesn't work, I'm out of here. And I think a lot of us went through that divorce thing because we needed to say, this doesn't honor me. So people used to think of divorce as failure. I know my parents did. It was like, oh, it's a failure. But we saw it as a triumph. this doesn't honor me, or I've learned everything I need to know from this relationship. And then it's time for me to find the next person who I resonate with, because you are going to attract what you resonate. You know, you're a frequency, you're a vibrational frequency, and you're putting that energy out there, and you're going to attract whatever you need to complement and for your growth.
The interesting thing is today, I was having a phone conversation with a friend, good friend of ours. He and his wife have been good friends for a long time, and he said, you know, we're getting a divorce. And I said, yeah, I had heard about that. You know, and it's one of those things where you go, you know, geez, I'm sorry to hear that, but obviously, you know, you're very aware people. And he goes, we are. And he says, we got to a point where we realized that we were really moving in different paths and different places. And that we have decided, and we sat her children down from a previous marriage to let them know what was going on, answered questions, all the rest of it. But it was really about, we're very good friends, but it was really us understanding that we were heading down different paths. And it's very harmonious, and we're really in great shape with it. And I'm like, that's kind of like a new earth relationship. You know, it was really looking at it from a very, very, very different perspective. It's two people who are very aware and understanding, but realized that they came together for a particular purpose in their lives, and they experienced it, and that now there was an imbalance that was being created. And rather than try and not be authentic and try and exist in a way where it didn't feel authentic, they decided that it was time for them to separate. But they're doing it in a way that is, and I listened to him describe what was going on with them and what they were doing together, and it was really a beautiful thing. And it's like, that's the kind of thing, if you're going to experience that in the new earth, that you can, it doesn't, again, it's a choice to bring other energies in to things like that. Disharmony, imbalance, anger, resentment, all the rest of it. Blaming. It's a choice. We make choices to do that. There's no law that says you have to do that. And that's what they sat down and did, was sat down and realized they had a choice on how this moved forward. They didn't have to do it in a way that was written in the tabloids or on the 6 o'clock news or on the reality TV shows or about how they saw other people experience it. They could create it in a whole new way. And that was an interesting discussion today on the heels of having a discussion about relationship.
But the thing is, talking about relationship, you know, most of us have had this experience of falling in love and like, you know, that bliss of falling in love, right? And we all want that bliss to last forever. And we all know that that doesn't. I mean, it does to here's the thing. Falling in love is the process. You have all your barriers down. You're in that place of non-judgment. All those beautiful qualities that we talked about that you spoke of. That's that falling in love process, right? And it's there, and it's real. When you get to the point where your stuff starts to come up, that's when relationship starts. The rest was just falling in love, which was beautiful, wonderful. But true relationship starts when your stuff comes up and you're there and you're a team and you're going to work through this together. And you're, again, using the tools, some of the tools, and we're going to go over more tools. You're not going to make the other person wrong. You're going to help them to evolve and see things from, you know, a soul's journey. But so many people now are looking for walking around to be bliss bunnies. And I got to tell you, my relationship with Gary is better than I could ever have dreamed a relationship would be. I wanted Mr. Wonderful to come, and I believed in love, but if he didn't come in this lifetime, okay, I'm still full, complete, and whole. But he showed up, and it's even better than I thought it could be. But it does require commitment, attention, loyalty, communication, and a willingness to do and go through life stuff together. I mean, stuff happens. It just does, whether it's places that you change in location of where you're living, or deaths or births or whatever. So you just go through it as a team. And you catch each other's back. It's not like this. That's the one thing. I know I'm in my own personal evolutionary growth, but I also know that someone's there supporting it. And mine his. So now it's time to get to the juicy stuff.
Well, I was just going to say one thing. You know, that point of, we didn't practice that. To the juicy stuff. No. But the point of what Flossie had said, that we start moving into relationship when we move beyond that nice, blissful state of connection with someone, and we start moving into that place of we're walking the earth day to day, living our lives, because it's about how that relationship is affected by us living our lives. You know, walking with one another, and stuff comes up. What I did before was hide my stuff, try and hide it. You know, and again, oh my gosh, you know, you're white knuckling it, you're straining so hard, they won't like me if they see my stuff. You know, so I just put this on and I try and get in there. And I just try and, you know, hide it. And it's like if you open up to it and realize that it is there together, you know, the support. It's like Flossie supported me, my support of Flossie. That is where real relationship came in. You know, because we really started to realize that we had stuff that we brought in, and it was okay. It was perfectly all right. But there was a connection far beyond that. Because it wasn't chance or circumstance that we were together. You know, and that's the other thing. My life that I had lived up till not all that long ago, I thought was based on chance and circumstance, just random things happening. People in my life, all the rest of it, it was just happening the way it was happening. People come into your life, and it's about recognizing the fact that there is a reason they come in. Now, maybe they're only there for a short while, but it's just about being present to it in that moment that they're there, and not looking at it as a chance occurrence at all.
Speaking of which, tell the story about the weekend before I showed up.
I had spent a good chunk of my life without being in a relationship. And there was a point in time after I left the business world and left a lot of beliefs and baggage behind, that I realized that I didn't want a relationship, wasn't open to a relationship, did everything in my power to run from relationship. Didn't want, lots of reasons not worth getting into, but lots of reasons were there. And then all of a sudden when I realized that and I started opening up a little bit my awareness, I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's the same as being needy to have a relationship. Either way, it's out of balance. You're on one end of the teeter-totter weighing it down. I'm either needy and I have to have a relationship, or I don't want one at all. So it was like, what was in the balance? And I started moving to this place of trying to really be balanced and open with it. But I needed to experience the reverse of what I had done for many years in terms of not wanting it. The weekend before I met Flossie, I went through 72 hours of being the neediest human being that ever walked the earth. I mean, it literally was, I needed a relationship so desperately, so badly, so that it was, I cried, I whined, I was, you know, the cat didn't want to be around me. The bobcats outside of where I was left. And, you know, it was like, you know, it was just, I had to go into that place of absolute need. And as I circled back around and came out of it, I fell so deeply in love with myself that I realized I never needed anyone else again. But I sure was open to someone. I realized that if that balance was to be, I was open to it. And literally 3 days later, Flossie walked into my life.
So he went through the dark night of the soul and went through it and came out and balanced.
It sounds like you didn't fall in love, you were lifted in love. You didn't
That's
go
the
through
way
that
it's
process.
supposed to be. What a great, that's so
That's
great.
beautiful.
He said, we didn't fall in love, we were lifted in love. And that's right. Everybody, don't fall in love. You're absolutely right. Let's write a book. That's a good one. I love that. be lifted up. But you can't keep up a persona. You can't keep it up. You'll end up sick. So don't look for a relationship where you've got to fake it. So now we're just going to, and again, we talked about that this could be a whole week's retreat, and we'd love to have it someday. Have a whole week's retreat, and each day we talk about maybe communication and sexuality and stuff like that. Just touch a little bit on sexuality because it is so much about New Earth, and it's so frustrating what the culture has done with sexuality, and everything is done out of lust, and there's very little done out of love.
Yeah. And when we talk about it, it's really understanding the difference between making love, being in a sacred union, and having sex. And it comes in, and I didn't understand the difference between any of that. I really didn't. The way I was raised, the belief system that I came out of, I really didn't understand this sacredness. And one of the things there's an interesting fellow, his name's Matthew Fox. He wrote this book, The Coming of the Cosmic Christ. Matthew was a former Roman Catholic priest, ended up leaving the church, literally being forced out of it. And he talks about sacred sexuality. And what he talks about is the fact that culturally, what we do in the West, particularly with religious beliefs and the rest of it, is that we address sexuality from two perspectives. One is silence. One is absolute silence. And the other is the moralizing of it. And in the silence, we don't do anything. I'm part Cherokee, and one of the things that Native people did, and still do, even though some of it's changed, but it was very big in all of our cultures. I'll talk about Native Americans. It was in every culture, whether your family is German, Irish, it doesn't make a difference where you were from. Those ancestors of ours used to take the young men and women that were entering puberty, and they would spend time with them telling them about this incredible sacred gift that they were just given, which was the ability to reproduce, the ability to bring other life into existence with God. And they would spend a lot of time sharing with them how beautiful this is, how sacred this is. But today, as Matthew talks about, what we do is we, give some gifts, a tweak on the cheek at communion and some bar mitzvah gifts, and that's about it. And we talk about everything that you can do wrong sexually. And we begin the moralizing about it, rather than supporting this incredible gift that's been given to us. This ability to be able to come together in a union. And for me, that was so out of my awareness and understanding. Because I learned about so many of these things in the locker rooms and with the guys and the rest of it, through innuendo and the rest. And I never really understood about this incredible relationship. He talks about in terms of his understanding. One of the things that he said, being a Catholic priest, he said, when I look at my 45 years, he said the one thing I really get from religion about sexuality is regret. That people wish that we weren't sexual beings. Because we have to deal with it, and if we weren't sexual beings, we could get on with our spirituality without realizing that it's one and the same, that it is a part of our being, it is an important part of our being, and that we have this opportunity when we move beyond the casual relationships and friendships with people to be able to enter into this sacred union. Again, the training wheels on the bike, about our union with God and our oneness with God. This was given to us, my belief, as an example of that and how to manifest that. But again, it's about being present to it. And it's about being present to what it is, because my beliefs about it were really, really different. And between the two of us and all the support that we had, it was coming into the realization of how sacred this truly was.
So the thing is, again, this is such a topic, you could go so deep in it, you could spend a lot of time. I believe that Tantra was created because Vedantic philosophy in yoga was renounce and celibacy, because you're only going to experience God without the body. And Tantric came along and said, no, the divine can be experienced in nature and in love. So what our society has done with this is pretty sad, but I believe that we're coming back around, and I believe that if we start to look at each other, first and foremost, looking at yourself as a sacred being, and if women especially started to treat themselves like a sacred being, they wouldn't be looking for love and using their bodies, but that's a whole nother thing. But the thing is, if you are in a higher consciousness, then coming together sexually is playing. If you are in an earthly consciousness, coming together is needing. And now in society, it's like, here, I have an itch, scratch it, and I don't want to have dinner with you. I don't even need to know your last name. That's pretty much what it is. But when people come together in divine union, it is such a celebration and the angels and everyone celebrates this union. And do you know why? And my kids are here, and they're going to really get uncomfortable with the fact that I'm going to say this. But orgasm is... Orgasm, the reason we all want this is because it duplicates where we came from, the state of ecstasy. We came from ecstasy. We came from one, bliss, God. And the closest thing on this planet right now in the material physical realm is that. So that's why everybody's doing it. They're trying to get back to where they came from, but they don't realize it. So if you really begin to understand the sacredness, and that there is this chance, this moment in the lovemaking where you do experience your oneness and you remember, or whatever that is for you, it is an opportunity. And it is play. It is love. And there's nothing immoral about it. But when we start to think about needs, then it becomes material, it becomes second chakra only, and it's very, very limiting. And it's very, ordinary.
And it's the one thing, my brothers, men, it's the one incredible opportunity where you can listen to that loved one, that female loved one, or one that carries that energy, in really understanding what that is. Because for men, it becomes more difficult. It just does, for many men. Not all, but it becomes more difficult. In truly understanding about that union and moving away from needs and moving away from the soul physicalness of it to how that union is actually occurring. There's an incredible opportunity. There's an incredible opportunity for people to sit down and talk with one another about it. Now, again, where I came from and the way my perception, my belief system and the rest of it, you just didn't have conversations like that with someone. That was just not something you did. But you realize, when you really come to understand the sacredness of that, and more importantly, the opportunity that exists to experience that sacredness and that union with the divine, with someone else, it's worth the investment. It's worth the investment. Because within that holds the opportunity to move to a place in relationship that to me moves us closer to what that a divine experience is all about. What that true sense and feeling of balance and harmony is with another being. And being able to experience the absolute utter bliss and joy that comes beyond orgasm. That's the interesting thing, is the physical aspect of it. My belief system was about that's what the physical aspect of it was. That was what you were doing. And then you realize, no. There's a whole nother level beyond that. There's a whole nother place that it takes you to beyond that. That's the gift that we've been given with it. And the opportunity. And it's not about, and Deepak Chopra's book really is wonderful with a lot of the things that he says in it, and I'd highly recommend it. But it's about two people saying, I'm conscious about this. Let's explore this and experience this together. Let's share with one another this co-creation, because that's what's going to happen, is you co-create it together. What an opportunity.
And for those of you that are of childbearing age, a child that is conceived out of lust has a different consciousness than a child that is conceived out of love. And if we want a new earth, then we need to conceive children out of love. And that's serious. And Gary and I very much are about conscious creations, conscious parenting, conscious. And you notice that word conscious, everything, bringing very aware of what we are doing. Okay, we're going to bring a soul onto this planet. Let's do this so sacredly. I think that was the way it was supposed to be. My intuition says, that sounds familiar. Let's do this consciously instead of by default. So now, just
hold on one second,
yeah.
because I just want to, someone asked this very sage person in Siberia, incredible wisdom. They said, how is it that we can have children that are well balanced, connected with God, the divine, connected with the planet, connected with the trees, the leaves, and all other things, in balance and harmony with all things? How can we have children like that? She said, it's really simple. Visualize that child when you're conceiving it. In that moment of conception, visualize that child. Think of that. Think of the energy that flows through you into that creation. By being consciously aware of that in that moment, and bringing that to this sacred divine act, this sacred divine union that's occurring.
So we're just about out of time, and so I think in conclusion, we could go for days, but I feel like we could share some of the tools that we use, and we're still learning and we're still evolving. But one of the things that I posted this on Facebook the other day, and it was from a friend, and it said, treat me like an angel and I'll show you what heaven is like. Right? But the truth is that when a woman feels adored, and that sounds trite, but it's not. When a woman feels adored and honored, she is so empowered. She is just overflowing. It's just like a flower, that if I energetically love that flower, you can take a picture of its aura and it's going to blossom, is it not? Well, and if I talk bad to it, obviously you can see that as well in that. But when a woman is honored, and that was one of the things that in our relationship, is that I was for the first time in my life honored and respected as a woman for what I bring to the table as a woman. Intuition. When I would say something, when I say to Gary, I'm feeling, he stops and he listens to what I'm saying. Because as a woman, when I feel something, you know, it's worth listening to. Sometimes, you know, but for the most part, it's worth listening to.
I was conditioned for most of my life to believe that men didn't feel. So I had shut off the feeling side of me. What I shut off was the cognitive recognition of my feeling. It was always there. I was always feeling. But that's what brought the imbalance to me. That was what brought the dark nights of the soul. That's what brought all of the stuff that I needed to create in my life that at times terrified me, because I shut that off. So I didn't have experience with it. So when she first started saying, I'm feeling something, I wanted to understand that. I wanted to hear that, because I didn't have a lot of experience with that. And that's that, again, that opportunity and the balance that we both bring in. This is just such a great reflection of that. Oh my gosh. This divine, sacred union of the feminine and the masculine. Why? To experience love, God created us? Yes. But to also bring in that experience of the balance that comes. Because all that she has, I also have inside me. It was just tucked away. I have that divine feminine within me. She has the divine masculine within her. It was tucked away. Conditioning, incarnate, all the rest of that stuff got me to push it down, tuck it away. But within this, we have the opportunity to bring it out. She is helping me with it, I help her with it. And that's the beautiful balance of it.
So the biggest tool that I think that you need is, and we practice this as much as we can, is to see the divine. And you're looking in your partner's eyes. And sometimes you know you'll see, obviously you'll see the external and all that stuff. But when you really are together and you look in each other's eyes, those eyes are the windows of the soul, and that soul is a reflection of God. And if you honestly see and know that you are partnered with God, even though God has layers, just like all these layers, I mean, but still, that takes the consciousness of the relationship up a notch. Really takes it up a notch. And so when you say, my beloved, it's beloved, my beloved. One of the other things that we make sure that we don't do, and I found this list, and I thought this was pretty interesting. How many of you feel like you need to control instead of let things flow? And that is very detrimental to a relationship, to try to control it. To try to say, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. It's so detrimental. Because the divine wants to flow, and it's going to be better than you could ever design. Right?
It's really important to look at that too, because I was definitely like that, and I'll still catch myself doing that now. And a lot of times, I thought it was about controlling, and a lot of times I found out it was about my perception of myself, and that I felt I wasn't bringing enough to the relationship, so I wanted to control where things were going. You know, because it was interesting. I thought it was just the male domination and the rest of it. I really realized that sometimes I felt I needed it to be done this way, and I needed it recognized that way, because I didn't. And when I really got down into it, I realized it was a perception I had of myself of not feeling I was bringing something, or maybe I was feeling I wasn't being respected. The key is if I feel that way, I'll say it. I'll say, you know, I'm feeling this, because how that stuff that we feel manifests is usually the icky stuff, is usually the stuff that creates the friction and the tension between people. It's always something underneath of it that's bringing it up, and if we can get to that, what's underneath of it, that's the dialogue. And that's the key, is communication, is being open to being a communicator and talking about it. Because otherwise the stuff sits inside and it festers.
And communication is not waiting till the other person's done talking so you can tell them what you want. You know, how many times you just wait till they're done, and then you're not even listening to what they're
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're ready to, because you have your what you need to say. That's your ego.
Yeah, somebody said that one night. They said, I found out that listening wasn't about just waiting to say something. I'm like, oh.
But I'm going to just these are a few things flowing, a relationship flows versus controlling. So just let's see if we identify with any of these qualities of controlling. Are you a perfectionist? Are you stubborn? Do you cling to your point of view? Are you intolerant? Are you disappointed when your expectations are not met? Are you possessive? Are you greedy and you have the tendency to get angry if opposed or confronted? What is anger? What is anger? It's fear. Anger is fear. Anger is saying, I'm not being seen, I'm not being loved. That's all anger is. So when someone gets angry, they're a little child screaming, would you please just love me? That's all they're saying. And it's just pretty fascinating to allow yourself to watch yourself, to see when you bring this stuff up, because all you're looking for is to be seen and loved. So there's a great master, Bience Duno. He was from Bulgaria, and we study a lot of his writings because he talks all about love. And quite frankly, we love the idea of love. It's always new. It's just so amazing, and it's so flowing. But the thing that he said that struck me so, which is so much the New Earth relationship, is that he said there's 4 components to love. The first, and each one you take this journey. The first one is God loves man. We could spend 20 lifetimes on that one, receiving the love of God. The second one, man or woman loves God. That's a whole nother chapter, right? The third one is man loves man. Lots of lifetimes there too. The fourth one is God loves God. That's it. That's the New Earth relationship. God loving God. And if we can work to perfect that, and it's a journey. It's not like, you get it right every day. Some days you have bad days, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But
It's about so much the conscious desire, the intention, the desire, the striving to do it. You know, it's just waking up in the morning and say, this is the way I want to be. I want to live my life this way. It's about at lunch, when you're having lunch, saying, this is the way I want to be. That's at night, before you go to bed or have dinner. This is the way I want to be. It's that striving toward it. Because the journey is about our evolvement and growth. You know, the perfecting of it, I don't even think about that. I don't need to think about that. My ego wants to think about that. I don't need to think about that. It can play with it. It's about me saying, no. This is the way I really want to live my life, and how I prioritize my energy and my use of it. Because these things are important. Being able to say that God loving God, and that's how I perceive and have my relationships with others. That's what I strive for. And that's the opportunity that's given to all of us, is to set that as our mantra, to set that as our focus. It's important enough to me. But you choose, everybody chooses themselves where their energy goes and how important they see these things.
So thank you very much for sharing your love.
Yeah.
and being God. Because it's such a sacred journey, but we can and will create a new paradigm for marriage, for a relationship, for everything. We can do this, but it has to start with ourselves. So namaste.
Namaste. Enjoy the new earth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.